Westhampton, what might that be?
Probably the first meeting that we all were together in the Flint's home up Carlton Road.
Flint. And was that within a block or two of the church?
Oh, it was just right up on the hill.
How many people do you recall being at one of your early meetings?
Probably 10 or so when we met at the Flint's.
I have no idea, but I would just say 10 offhand.
Ruth, the closeness?
Well, of course it was, because living in, in the southwest section, this was closer for me. But the one reason for our church is this lot was given to us. Early ones, Cleet Rawls worked for the city at that time, city manager, and every time he'd see some dirt anywhere, he'd say, dump it on this lot.
To help fill it up a little bit.
And they had to fill it up.
Cleet Broyles is a name. Flint is a name. Who are some other names that you associate of being early leaders in Westhampton?
Well, Dr. Vera Rogers was the minister at First Christian Church, and he was the instigator of this building because he said from the pulpit, he said, this is a growing area of the city. We do not have a church in this area. And Marvin and Thelma were members, Jim Odie and Ruth were members, and those were the two that I remember that he contacted. So, Marvin was a big leader, and he was all enthused. Can I tell you something funny about Marvin?
Please do.
Well, he always, after we got the plans built for this building, now I wasn't in on any of the financial stuff because I made about $100 a month, teaching school. But anyway, Marvin had the plans rolled up in a little thing, how tiny they are, but it was long, and he always went with it stuck under his arm and bored everybody to death with it, So one Sunday, Ruth may have been with me, I don't know, there were several of us standing out in the empty lot. And we looked up and Marvin was coming with that under his arm. And somebody looked at me and said, oh, run,
Here he comes.
Here he comes, and he's ready to bore us to death again.
Well, obviously you both hung with it through the initial phase and are here 60 years later. Can you honestly say there were times that were tough where you questioned whether the church was going to make it? Can you think of times like
Well,
that?
there were plenty of those times, but there were, for the most part, there were a young bunch who were eager. Now, we had these older members who we couldn't have done without, but they really got in there. The younger bunch had worked, and I think because of the younger bunch, and every church needs the young folks.
I can tell you something else I recall about the financial end of it, and Ruth may be able to help me out with this. I don't know who the 5 men were, but when it came to making a commitment to get the money and the land and all of those things, those 5 men put their names on the paper so that we were allowed to borrow this money and get it started. Now,
We met in the community center.
Grand Court Community Center.
Community Center. And this minister from Salem came and volunteered, and he carried us until we were able for Walter to come. Now, his salary. That's the only time that ever happened, because that's quite embarrassing.
Quite a giving minister to say, I'll just forego my salary so we can keep it going. But he would have been a contemporary of yours, a young man who shortly out of divinity school.
Little children.
Well,
of course, you know that all the churches in the area financed us that first year, and that's why we were able to get a minister.
one of the things that stood out in my mind is that you're both leaders in our congregation. Both of you have been elders, for example. Did you think of Westhampton as being progressive in terms of having women pray at the table ahead of other denominations, of other churches?
Well, in the early days, there was some conversation about that, and but we won out.